Hi, friends. I'm Z. I'm the founder of Embody More Love, which is a spiritual kinky dance company for personal and cultural liberation. And I've created this YouTube channel to invite us to open our hearts to ourselves, to each other, to the gift of being alive and the beauty of collective life. And I invite you to join this channel as I share updates and highlights from our local community here and also interview guests. And I am very, very excited to bring on our guests today. And these are guests, people who inspire me. Um, and today I get to be with Leslie Blackburn, who is a friend, colleague, a graduate of some of the work that I've offered. And I'll share a little bit more about them in just a moment, but I want to gently remind all of us that this is a homegrown community that I started in 1999. And I'm able to do this because of support from people like you all. So I don't have advertisements, I don't have sponsors, and I get to be most directly supported by the people who are most impacted by this work. So I invite you, if you're already a Patreon, thank you so much for your support. And if you like what you hear here, if you want to be part of this culture and uplift this culture, I invite you to join us at patreon.com/embody more love. So today, I am so excited for this. Like, I get to be with Leslie. Leslie uses they, them pronouns, as I do. Um, Leslie was a former mechanical engineer turned into a sacred sexuality educator and spiritual coach, and now a conscious community leader. And just wait till you hear more about that. A queer, omnisexual, polyamorous, ecosexual, genderqueer supporter of all beings to be authentically who we are. Leslie's also a graduate of Do Good Things with Power, which was a leadership program I created years ago, um, and just got elected as the first openly LGBT, all the thing dings, magic stuff, um, elected official in Lodi Township in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So, Leslie was sworn into office 2 days ago, which also happened to be Trans Remembrance Day. I could not think of a more aligned timing to talk to you at a moment when some of us might be feeling despair around the election system. And here you are engaging it in such a different way and engaging. It's like deeply healing and inspiring to be talking to you in this moment. So, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you. I'm so honored. The timing of this is exquisite and so not coincidental, like in all of the really sweet ways that the ancestors work through us. So
Yes,
thank you.
yes. And with that, I want to call in some of the energies to hold us, to partner with us in this conversation. And I want to invite all of you listening to just take a breath, maybe soften your eyes or close them. To ground down your spine and down your legs, and to take a moment to feel the support that's already around us in this moment. The support of where our body might be touching a chair or a floor. I want to call in the energy of earth and grounding. I want to call in the magical energy of trees and what they know about community and root systems that intertwine. I want to call in the energy of wild dreaming, of not even recognizing where our life might lead us because we're that open to hearing new ways that we might contribute. And Leslie, I invite you, if there's an energy or some opening prayer words that you'd like to call in to co create this beautiful space together.
Hmm. Yeah, there's humanity care and relational healing.
Mm, mm.
Yes, the reaching out to each other and the deep gratitude that I have for like massive support that I'm feeling personally, ancestrally, in community, and with the land. May we all have a connection with each other.
Oh, thank you. And taking another breath as we come into softening our eyes open and just so grateful to be with you. So, oh gosh, the first question I want to ask you is how do you embody more love in whatever way that feels true to you?
um,
Yes.
there's so many ways to answer that question. And they're all at the root like of what is embodiment like. So when you asked, as you asked me that question, some prompt questions within it, like, um, are you like I can kind of roll with some of those, or if you, yeah,
Please feel
wherever.
free
Okay,
to, yeah, we'll find our dance.
sounds great.
Uh,
Yeah, right now, like if I think of how do I embody more love, like in this moment, in this year, it's been how do I listen to my body and my ancestral guides and support and the land and the community beloveds to like guide where do I place my presence and attention.
mm,
And I had four main things this year, and one of them was running for office. And it what's been beautiful is that there was a way in which I held politics at like arm's length and just didn't want to pay attention. And I sort of recognized I had privilege to sort of ignore some of it. And as basically the trees, like my own activism here with the land to support like stopping destructive development pressure locally that wants to rip out the trees. We're still working on that. Um, the trees and the ancestors actually guiding me. So like this planting in my body and listening from that place,
yes.
spiritual connection with the land and my body and my practices around that and ancestral healing. I think I almost used to think we're separate from this other thing called politics. And through an interesting sequence of events that one could call like miracles, um, I just got guided like, this is where I'm supposed to place my attention.
Mm.
And then I was like, what? And so I started to realize like, I even see some differences where there's like, well, wait, well, I'll say my politics is my spirituality. My spirituality is my politics. Like my identity and who I am walks right with me into this office instead of
Mm.
feeling like I have to put parts of me aside. So the embodiment piece to me is like, can I walk as this whole human, this whole being that happens to be here in this human physical body this time around,
Yes.
and make those choices to engage with my community in this way, which was right for me and not right for everyone. It's fine.
Mm. Oh my gosh. I love this. And I know there's three other things you didn't even get to, but I just want to respond in this moment. I was re-listening to Alok's podcast recently called The Urgent Need for Compassion. It's one of my favorite podcasts and something that I regularly assign to my students. And one of the things that stood out to me this time, I listen to it like at least twice a year. Okay. So, like, and I always hear different things, but one of the things that really stood out to me was in the colonization of designing the gender binary, there was also a separation from politics and family. And what Alok says about that was saying, okay, we're going to design the sphere of women and men as a political strategy, and women will be in the domain of the home and the family, and men will be in the domain of politics. And in that separation, not only was there a division of the gender binary but there was a division that politics was somehow separate from the energy of family care and home care and like being in relation to land, right? In our home, literal home. And I've been really reflecting on that. And so as I listen to you, and I think there's so many of us who are like, what is my relation to politics? And especially on November 22nd, when we're speaking right after Trump was just elected, you know, what is being asked of us right now? What can we be curious about in our relation to politics and what we thought politics was and what politics could be? And I think watching you run for office is like expanding my sense of possibility about what politics can be and about bridges between the sacred sexuality world and political liberation, bridges between our local communities and what can literally shift in a political policy level system. So what I really want to ask you is like, what do you want to say to someone right now who might be listening and watching, who's frustrated about politics and has no idea what to do next?
Breathe.
Oh, yes.
Listen to our bodies and be in ancestral repair and care. And like, there's so much I want to say on that question.
Mhm.
Like these layers, we can make choices on which layer of reality, like we exist on so many layers of the field. And this is often said in a spiritual bypassy kind of way. And so what I want to be clear to me, what I'm is like the embodiment part is the way in which it's not bypassing, like living in our bodies, listening to the experience of what our body has to say, this emotion of rage, this emotion of grief, like feeling that fully through its path as a portal to our power, right? Like this is
Mm.
work that you helped spark in me of like, how do we build resilience and capacity in this organism?
It's
The big, amazing beings that we are here, and to be with big energy, whether that big energy is the like pulse of eros and orgasm, or whether that's like the grieving or the rage or the intensity of discomfort of anti-racism work, or the the offerings that we make to the ancestors that help us continue to build that resilience, right? Like,
Mm.
and so
Yes.
the there's this for me I started to meet this question of like there's kind of like these four foundations of relational healing that I needed to see.
Mm.
I started in a journey of like listening to my body is one of them, like could I actually listen to what my body was saying instead of running it and driving it and telling it what to do, to actually go, oh, sweet gift of an organism here. Let me hear what you have to say. And so I kind of was in this arc, like you mentioned, of mechanical engineer, but then in this journey of what I'll call like body sovereignty and empowerment coaching and sacred sexual healing was like, can we listen to the body? For me, it was like a big unpacking of a lot of trauma, of stories that are here that like, I don't need to carry that way anymore. I could invite things to go a different way. And
Mm,
then as I do that, then now there's a clarity in this vessel that I can focus energy in a new way and not have to carry along the baggage of the past or keep, lifting something that maybe, the ancestors can hold or something like that. So um there's these building of these relation. And so for me, it was meeting that and this dance of that, but also, can I lean into the support of the ancestors? Can I lean into the support of the land? So for me, community, and so those four things: community, the land, and our bodies, and the ancestors, repairing and being in relationship with, so that as I move forward in the world, I can feel clearer in how do I, what is my calling, and how do I place attention there? And so when you talk about like this question of what to tell folks around the political piece, forget how you worded it. Yeah. And
helpful to
wondering
name
what
the
to do
question.
next. Yeah. What's that?
Yeah. Is it helpful to restate?
Yeah. Go ahead and repeat the question because I
What do
want to
you,
come back to something on it.
yeah, what do you want to say to someone who is frustrated about politics in this moment?
Oh,
Who's like, what do I do next?
what do I do next?
Or
Yes.
maybe, why would I even care to be engaged from here? Right? Like, what do you want to say from your heart to theirs in this moment?
Mm. Mm. Yes. First to kind of breathe and settle and listen. Um, and depending on and notice, like, so the self-awareness piece and the individual practice is one thing, but this is what I wanted to get to around the relational, is that we're not alone. And our political system and other things in our systems are so set up around this sort of hyper independence of each person, each man for themselves kind of thing. And that's not who we are as humans. I have a story of like when I was in an ancestral practice recently of healing in my line, and something opened, and there was a reaching forward of the ancestral guides in the line that I had come into relationship with, that were, maybe thousands of years back before rupture, and the reaching towards us, and then the reaching of the less well ones that have already moved in, who have left this, maybe even the unnamed ones far back, but still in the rupture, and that reaching for and reaching together. So there's something about the reaching and the connection and the relational that I want to offer. I think
Mhm.
a lot of us especially during a pandemic, created a lot of ways that we isolated. And I just want to invite, like, we're in this together. So there's a reaching.
Mhm.
And the other piece is, especially for those of us who walk, like, for the self-aware, to have enough self-awareness. So what I was starting to say is to have enough of the individual self-awareness where we can sort of sense and place where we are in our social, political, like, mandalas, and what are our spheres of influence, and then make choices based on that. So if I get overwhelmed with whatever news story or whatever is happening so much that I'm collapsed and can't actually bring my service, then that's not where I want to place my attention. So I want to
Yes.
align with where do I feel right action? Um, without, for people like me who tend to overdo that, right? It's like I have to do it all, and then blah, 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 and then I'm going to burn out. Is to
Right.
go like,
Right.
how do I bring in joy and center pleasure and comfort? Adrienne Marie Brown and pleasure activism,
Yes.
strategy, like caring for ourselves and also acknowledging where we have privilege. And so, in my case, as a tall statured white human who walks the world in a way that passes as, you know, uh, I'm often seen as passing in sort of like cis heteronormative kind of world when I walk with one of my partners. And so there's this assumption around and that has a privilege. And so rather than me getting swallowed up in the guilt of that privilege, and it's like, let's use our privilege equitably. And
Mhm.
where can I make a choice? And how can I take action? And I was shocked to see that for my journey, it meant run for office. But we each have our own piece. And
Yes.
it might mean to express the art through you that is about processing the grief of this time because we need that.
Yes. Oh, I love this. And I want to ask you, when you speak about the rupture, the ancestral rupture, can you say more, especially for people who might be listening who don't have a current relation with their ancestry?
Yeah.
Say your connection with your ancestors has developed so robustly over the time I've known you. And can you say a little bit about how you came into relation with your ancestors and what do you mean when you say ancestral rupture or ancestral repair?
Thank you. Yes. Um, you're right. It is in the era of when I met you where that began to open for me, right? Through your work and some other folks, where I went, I'll just say it. This folks might identify with this, right? Like grief. What do you mean grief? I don't need to connect with grief. Nobody around me's died, or um, or ancestors. Like I think in the past, I might have thought of ancestors as either this sort of like really ancient, unnameable ones that are just these like, oh, great, the ancient ones. Or I would think of like, oh, my grandmother passed. And so that's my ancestor. And there's this missing piece in between there that's vast.
Hmm.
And so in Daniel Foer's work of ancestral medicine is a big piece of what helped frame what I'm about to say,
Hmm.
as well as Simon Wolf, who is an incredible human that I've worked with personally, who has helped guide me with some of the ancestral healing work. Um, and so I'll name those as part of the lineage of this frame that I'll offer. But the idea that we all have connection with well, kind, vibrant, and resourced ancestral guides. They're there. For many of us, they are so far back
Hmm.
because of the rupture of hundreds of years, thousands of years of humans doing really mean things to each other. And then for those of us in what we name as the United States or Canada, um, there are many folks who come with lineages, and we each have our different flavors and threads of this that went through, like me, with I have an array of European ancestry. And so there's times in the past where through sort of empire-based clashing in Europe, there was this escape of like, how do we go find safety, right? And then coming here and then recreating that rupture of like, now we're going to have clashes with the people who live here and create more rupture, massacre, destruction, displacement. And so these ruptures that many kind of wanted to say, well, that happened in the past, like these things still carry in us in unprocessed ways.
And
And I
it's
believe,
still happening
and
today.
it's still happening today. And we're seeing actually that things that many people thought were, oh, that was the past, or we don't do that anymore. We don't do slavery. We don't do racism. Like we are seeing now, like the veil really being pulled back of how much, oh, yes, we do. We. And how can we care for our own selves when we notice we've created harm? That was a question I loved hearing you ask me once.
Mm.
Notice how do we treat ourselves when we've created harm? It's
Hmm.
not a matter of if harm's been created. It's like, how do we notice it? How do we tend to it? How do we make amends? How do we care for our own bodies? How do we care for the people who've experienced it? But
Yes.
that there's so this all this rupture that we don't even name details of, and now still in it, still happening. How do we make changes in how we relate to repair and rebuild and um, yeah, find equitable ways of moving forward? And we each have different roles in that, depending on
Mhm.
privileges we hold, the oppressions we hold, and their intersections of all those.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. So important. Uh, yeah, I don't actually remember asking you that, but I'm so glad you brought it back into the field because I think so often there's such emphasis on self-care when we have been marginalized or have been the victims of harm. Um, and yet everyone needs to be in self-care because it is such a courageous thing to be willing to not abandon ourselves when we realize that we've created harm or we've inherited our privilege, our ease, our convenience through the harm of others, right? And can we not self abandon? Can we choose? Can we be interested in self care in service to accountability? Can we be interested in self care in service to listening to the ancestors? Can we be interested in self care in service to being able to feel another layer of grief and anger because we're willing to take care of ourselves and get enough sleep and drink enough water and eat healthy foods as a way of saying, I am willing to feel, right? Yeah, how connected that is. So, yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes. And this organism needs that care, coming back to what we, to move that big energy and offer
Yes.
this gift of processing unfinished business, right? With the boundaries. This is so as we started to talk about the ancestral work and the rupture and the well ones, right? That
Hmm.
that there's what we need to also notice, because I know I will tend to be like, yeah, okay, how can I? And we don't need to take on more than is ours. To ask, like, the ancestors do the work. It's like, can we place attention and offering and see and ask? And maybe some of these ancestors haven't had attention placed on them in tens of thousands of years, thousands of years, hundreds
Yes.
of years. And now, and hold the boundaries, right? Of the less well ones, not all the dead are equally well, as Daniel Forwell says. And so it's not about, oh, I'm going to dive in and start working with ancestors that are holding a lot of that disruption. Like, instead, for me, it's like, can I go back and ask for the help of those well ones to say, will you hold them in a cocoon of prayer? Will you tend to and support and welcome them? The reaching that I described earlier, that
Yes.
reaching through this rupture, it was a chasm. This rupture chasm is the way it was appearing to me. And this little, like, crack, like, of light. And then the reaching, because if we ask for that support, like, then there's a heaviness we don't have to carry. Like, we do our role as, again, sphere of influence. What is our role? Do that. But what is not our role? Don't. Like, hold the boundaries and be clear, um, to the best that we can. And that discernment is what helps, like, have the energy
Mm.
to what we're focused on and not just get burdened down with the weight of the world, which,
Yes. Yes. I love this and I so see it working for you. And I also want to lovingly challenge one piece of it. And it's okay to hold this differently, right? And that is my grief teacher, Saban Fusome of the Dagara people in Burkina, that's in West Africa, Burkina Faso. She had a sense of relating to ancestors in a way that's very different than the Western world. And she believed that when you became an ancestor, you were able to heal what you weren't able to heal when you were alive. And you're able to see the things you weren't able to see. And that the Western idea of our ancestors not being well was not how she oriented. And she, in her sense, and this is like a thing like you can try it on, right? If you're listening now, like I'm not trying to be like you need to think this way, but I felt such breathing room in her hearing and her saying that. And I have come to feel that as true in my body, this sense that, and she is even so radical as to say, if you need support from the ancestors around a certain realm, actually invoke the ancestors that did make a mess in that realm, that did have trouble in that realm, because they're the ones who are going to know what the big lessons were. And I find that so fascinating and so wild and such a beautiful invitation, whether you take it or not, you
Mhm.
know? But I think there are these energies regardless of what frame you're using, there are these energies that are so much bigger than us. There's so many ways the unseen world wants to partner with us. And I see you as someone who has welcomed that and who has partnered with that, and that there's such a level of care that you're opening yourself to be a channel for. And I want to highlight something that you didn't just run alone. You ran with a team of people. And that's also about this thread you're talking about community. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. Thank you for adding in Simone Fu's frame. And I'm going to sit with that more because there's definitely pieces of that that I've already tapped into.
Yes.
And I'll name like for folks listening to try on both, because what I've also seen as I've worked with a lot of folks with this work is it's really easy, I think, to get swallowed into something, and and sometimes it's just like set that aside for a moment and then come back to it, right? Like with more recently dead ancestors is what I'm saying. So, and yes, so the question of what was next, what was that prompt?
Yeah, you didn't run by yourself.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't run by myself in the physical world or in the spiritual world. Are you kidding? So this is how that went down. Last year, as I was like, I had been 3 years, or almost 3 years in activism, going like, we really know we are not going to destroy this intact native forest for more luxury home development. I am a no. And so what can we do? So now imagine I'm in meetings basically doing all the work, and I'm having friends going like, hey, you're doing all the work already. You should run so you get the vote and actually can sit at the table and have a vote. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't do politics. Like, I don't think. And so I resisted it for a minute. But I
Mhm.
also felt, and I'm familiar now enough with some life experience to know that resistance and to go like, uh, when someone's like, are you going to run? Like, have you ever considered running for office? And I'm like, fuck no.
Yeah.
um, that like that itself was information. So I'm like, okay, all right, okay, trees. So now I'm praying with the trees and I'm connecting and I'm listening. And I'm like, I think y'all are telling me to do something, but I tell you what, like, I cannot do this alone. Like, there are people on this board I don't think I could work with. I don't think it would be effective, and I would just get swallowed. And I need help. Can you show me? And specifically, I named a couple of the people and positions and was like, I think I need help with this. And by the next meeting, after I'd started to do this prayer, I speak up at the meeting again. After the meeting, a man comes up to me and shakes my hand. And he's like, I just heard you talk. I just want to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Eric. My name's Eric, and I'm running for Lodi Township clerk. And oh, my husband, Finn, is running for trustee. And I was like, what? The
Yes.
fellow queerdos are here?
Yes.
I can't tell you what that felt like.
Mm.
And I had already started considering it, but that's what he was coming to me. He's like, he wanted to ask me to run. He's like, I think you should run, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I've already been considering it. So long story short, we end up in a spiral that we like 6 people run for 7 board positions in
It's
our
huge.
township.
Yeah.
And the bittersweet answer to how it landed is that those 2 humans did not get elected, and I couldn't have done it without them. And 2 other ones did. So 3 of the 6 of us got elected. So while we were hoping to have a majority flip, we didn't, but we got 3. And
Yes.
there
Yes.
are folks that I know, I've just got out of a meeting today with them, and I'm like, y'all, we're all sitting here because the people asked us to be here.
Yes.
And we all got, we, all the people said yes to us. And it's a huge range of thoughts, processes, and political views. And that's what's being asked for right now. And so I see it, while I was sad that these folks didn't, that some of my, running mates didn't get elected. I'm also like, you know, the people who did, we have a way to make a connection. Like, we
Yes.
care about, what do we share and care, right? Humanity care for the land. We are a rural agricultural township, and so having a lot of people who are like care about land and care about tending land in each our own ways. Um, and so I want to bring forward that history of the land and
Mm.
accessibility of new voices, because what we haven't done well is um, is open our hearts to like how and actually actively support how we listen to everyone. That
Yes.
has not been done well, and so we're making some changes.
Oh, thank you. And the solidarity that those folks who ran and didn't win created that field of solidarity, right? And I so hear, I'm like,
Massive solid.
I'm thinking about the Bernie Sanders this week bringing forth voting on blocking $20 billion to go into more Israeli funding, and how 19 senators voted against funding further the genocide in Gaza. And while that was not the victory that most of Americans and most world citizens would have wanted, that 19, and this goes back to your point of like not burning out, right? There's so much power because that 19 wasn't 19 before, right? And the 3 of you weren't there before. And so it's like, I think part of the medicine of these times is seeing in the larger arc that there is progress happening, even if it looks on a smaller scale than we had expected, and still let that progress move us and give us inspiration, right? So, wow, yes.
And
I want
and
to I want to ask you, over the years of us working together in different ways, what has really stayed with you? What has become yours?
mm, well, some of it you've heard already. Um, One of the biggest is communities of support, and subtle, 2 of the biggest communities of support and subtle body changes.
Mm,
Way we can talk about something all day long, but until there's that like the something that shifts in our physical, emotional, mental, spiritual systems, however we frame that, we can frame it in lots of ways. It's not just a cognitive, verbal thing. So I have felt in that my own subtle body shifts, for me, like quite literally solar plexus related, around like containment and
mm,
allowing my heart to be buoyed by the energy rather than like blasting it all over, um, there was a way that I could like hold and stay with my voice. And I've been and like building on that in other things in my life, certainly, but a seed of that in our work was
Mm.
like, how can I now like be with that big energy and stay in my center and my truth and my power, even in really dynamically different, difficult situations in the relational field with other bodies. And that, like, I practice Aikido, and that is a big piece of what Aikido is for me, is an
Oh.
extension of something that's seated in that time.
Mm.
That is different than what a lot of us who might, like myself, who have a yoga background or Qigong that are very individual practices, to say, like, those are important, yes. And can we bring that same care of presencing into the relational field and stay in difficult situations and care for ourselves, certainly, but like
Yeah.
stay in difficult situations and stay in our voice and our action and our truth rather than collapsing
Ugh.
or taking over,
Yeah.
right? Either collapse
Yes.
or like
Yes.
fight and power aggressor over, like different, like,
Yes.
yeah.
Wow. Well, it's been an honor to be part of that journey, and I learned so much like together. I always learn. It's not like the binary of teacher student, right? It's like we're learning together. There's like this way that we keep inspiring each other, keep informing each other of what work is coming through us. And it is like been such a cherished friendship for me that we have continued to stay in touch and continue to grow and inspire each other. And I I know we're coming to the end of our time soon, and you have a book coming out. Will you tell us what is happening? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So amidst all of this shift,
Yes. Talk about capacity. Hmm.
yeah, and I want to come back to like the massive sense of support that I feel from beloveds, from chosen family, from bio family, from um, community, from the ancestors, from the land. Like I couldn't have done any one of these things, running for office, anything that has been a we every step of the way, all of it. And that letting ourselves have and rest in community support and ask for it and let
Yeah.
yourselves actually receive it, like that whole dance, that is a thing. And the second piece, when you said, what do I still carry with me? Um, just some of the like even healing sexual shame in community, healing other
Yep.
shame of like walking in this world around creating harm in community. How do we do that in community? That is, I want to see us do more of that.
Mm.
So with the book, 14
Yes.
years, 14 years in the making of like
Wow.
of can I bring my story, and it had to reshape itself a couple times, and then it's finally ready to be born, and it launches December 12th, which is my grandmother's birthday. She was born 12/12/12. She came to me in a dance
Wow.
in December of 2006 after she passed. She passed 4/14. And then as we headed towards the next 12/12/12, because this was back in 2006, I
Mm.
started like drumming with her. And so that 12/12/12 felt really important. But the book is Sacred Sexuality. We got a little proof of physical
Yes.
listening to our body. And yeah, a blend of my personal story, some teachings from that journey, and also like how can we explore this together? Here are some recipes, some things, some practices to explore.
Mm. Beautiful. Oh, yum. I'm so excited for you. I'm so excited for the world to have your leadership, to have your book, to have your presence, to
Mm.
have you as a bridge between politics and ancestors and humanity care and stewarding land and to inspire all the ways that those can bridge in us too, in the ways that are most organic to us. And one of the things that I would love to do together is I like asking my guests to bring in a song that we can move to together. Because as I was saying to Leslie earlier, like, I don't think we just embody more love by talking about it. So I want us to offer this uh, just 2 minutes of us moving together to this song that you picked um, as a prayer. And let me just ask, is there any words you want to share? And then the prayer will become our bodies. But the prayer that you'd like to offer our human family in this moment.
Mm. Yeah, my prayer, and I speak this often, sometimes daily, for humans is may humans remember wisdom and compassion and accountability and care and right relationship, and that we're all interconnected and that we have to move forward making choices with that awareness for us to, yeah, for us to thrive. May we remember these,
Mm,
please.
thank you. If you're with us, you're welcome to move your body as well, or to simply witness us.
Pine, I am calling to you, aspen. I am singing to you, redwood. Hear this song. Birch bark, weeping willow, dogwood, blooming moonlight, cedar, let it fall far away. Oak, you bore my body. Babe, I bade you open these vessels to receive your whispers. Tender breath keepers, givers of life to these lungs, may I open my ears and surrender. What will you tell me? How can I tend you? How can I tend to the ones who pour life through these lungs? Care, there are rivers going dry, bone and soul.
Mhm. Thank you. Is there anything else you want to share as we come in for our landing together?
Love. I love you. Thank you for doing this together. I love the humans
Mm,
when we're doing things that don't make any sense. I love the
mhm,
land and the ancestors. Love.
mhm. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I will, are there ways that people can find you, Leslie, that people can stay connected to you if they wish to,
Yeah.
or get
Yes.
your book?
I'll get my book. Yes. Actually,
Yeah.
there is a page at leslieblackburn.com that has, if you go there and find book, you'll see, and it gets updated with each step. So right now, the launch is planned 12/12. The book drops. There'll be a link available to buy it, the paperback. Um, and yeah, next phases of the book will continue. So if people are interested, they can go there, click on contact, send me a little thing, and I'll put them in the email loop for actually being notified about that process.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you all. Thank you. May these energies continue to move through us in the most aligned and generative ways as we embody more love.